Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. John Michael Salvato, and with me is Jason Vitki Bull Bonds. We've got a great show lined up for you today on this, the very first episode in our 2019 series. We're back after a somewhat longer hiatus than what we thought we were going to be due to our decision to start finding a better platform for us to be able to connect with you guys. And we're really happy about this platform that we've got now because it will allow you to interact with us and with our guests on the screen. This will actually be, the Saturdays will be sort of the instructional Inner Alchemy, and then we'll have Inner Alchemy the Brew, which is kind of like the pagan version of The View or The Talk or Chew or all those different shows on television, where we get together and talk about the ideas and things that matter in our lives. And so if you've got questions today, and I see Jay Lee there, welcome Jay, good to see you. If you've got questions, as you see, we'll be able to show those on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and take our names down in just a minute. But I want to introduce you to our guest today, and I kind of want to explain to you what it was that made me decide to introduce Vitki Bull to you guys. You know, in the non-traditional communities, or what I call the traditional communities, because we predate the Abrahamic religions, there's just as much strife and infighting and craziness as we see in any other religious group or philosophical group or practice. There's division in this country like never before. And so I felt that while there are some close friends of mine in the various Abrahamic sects who are working together to try and bridge some of those divisions, to try and bring love and compassion and service back to the focus, that within the pagan community, I didn't see that. And so I had the good fortune of meeting Vitki Bull through one of the Facebook groups that we're part of, and you know, frankly, I'll tell you that in some of those groups, the things that I was seeing, having a doctorate in theological anthropology, and as such an awareness of some of the foundational tenets of some of the world religions, some of the stuff I was seeing was more fanboy, fangirl kind of stuff. It was nonsensical. It was you know, based more on a television show or a movie than it was on some of the real traditions. And you know, that's not to say that there isn't a place in our lives for fantasy. There isn't a place in our lives for you know, sort of mythology and dreaming and play. But today we want to talk a little bit more about the practical and real approach, the real practice, the spiritual practice, and so Norse paganism is one of those areas that has always resonated with me, but not as a personal path. I kind of felt like for me that would be almost cultural appropriation, but there's just something beautiful and whole that I think in a post that I was going to try and get up here on the screen today, Vitki Bull embodies in a way that really makes me proud to know him. So I'm going to go ahead and rather than, because I've spoken longer than I wanted to, rather than read your bio, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Vitki Bull. Have you tell us a little bit, first of all, there's for those who are watching, a big question many of us have is what is a Sathru? What is how is that different from Norse paganism? How is that different from some of the other sects that are out there? So if you could kind of explain that and tell us where you're coming from, what branch you're coming from, and then tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are today, and how you discovered that this was your spiritual path.
Hi. So sorry, a little there. So anyway, well, Asatru, heathenism, Norse paganism, I see it's all the same thing, just different names that we choose to use. Asatru is one name that was used in a couple of decades ago. Now it's being called Fornsed in Europe. There are people in the States that call it Norse paganism or Germanic paganism, depending on where you're from. It's just, you know, different names for it. we do have different sects within this. Like we have Anglo-Saxons, we have the foreign setters, people that just go under the umbrella heathenism. We all have our different practices, which is okay. Everyone comes from different areas, but yeah, sorry. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. We have a very diverse community. Structure varies from sect to sect, and yeah.
Good. I just have to say you're doing great. I know this is your first time on the show.
Yeah.
I know that it can be a little nerve-wracking but
well, wait, so a little bit about my journey. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
So my journey started when I was a child. My father used to go into nature all the time, and I didn't quite understand things that he was teaching me. He was teaching me things about the trees and the earth and the wind and stuff that I was like, okay, you know. He's like, there's different things. He's like, the wind is something and the earth is something. I didn't quite get what he meant at the time. My mother is a Christian, come from a Christian family. I didn't quite understand until I got older. But I always was connected to what he said. When I was a child, he taught me something to control my dyslexia. But we sat in the middle of the field, and he had me close my eyes and not speak anything. I'd focus on one thing at a time, and I had to sense something within the forest. I had to know it was there. And what I did not realize he was teaching me until I got older, he was teaching me Seder, which is a magical form of spirit journey and stuff, which is being connected to all. So in a way of teaching me to heighten my senses and to sense the earth and everything around me. So that's my first experience on this journey. Later on, I actually had a vision of Thor. I had no clue who he was. I was a child at the time. And I was going through a process, just kind of an exorcism type thing my mother did, and I saw Jesus, and all of a sudden I saw this figure, red hair, hammer, and brought it down. I had no clue what it was, and it shattered like glass to sand and blew away. That was my very first experience, and I just knew this is what I was called to, you know.
Wow.
So,
and you were how old?
I was a child. I was maybe around 10, 9.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. Now, in one of our first conversations, you talked about you live in. We should tell the viewers you live in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Not to be mistaken, as I did, with Pottstown, Pennsylvania. They're fairly close to one another, but Pottsville is along the Schuylkill River. I grew up in Philadelphia, and so I had cousins that lived in Wilkes-Barre, and that's, I think you're just north of there, right?
Yeah, I believe. Familiar with the whole area yet? I'm still learning it.
So it's an area that is to this day is part of the coal belt in Pennsylvania, and as you can imagine, with despite what you might hear from some of the talking heads in DC, coal is not making a comeback, and so the area is pretty hard hit. And you shared with me some of your vision for revitalizing your community. We should also say that like me and most, very many of our viewers, you're part of the LGBTQ community, and so that you impressed upon me a vision that you had both for our community, our tribe, if you will, as well as reaching out and serving the greater community. And that just goes hand in hand with what you said today on Facebook, that really struck me and kind of was my confirmation that I absolutely had the right guest on the show, and that this was one of those synergistic moments that the right person came along in my life, and our paths crossed for a reason. So tell me a little bit about, and the viewers a little bit about that vision you have for the LGBTQ community, and what you think you could do for the community as a whole in Pottsville.
Well, so far from what I've been here in Pottsville, I've noticed that the community is not thriving at all. There's a lot of empty shops. I don't really see many people, and a lot of places for rent and for sale. And it's like, this is a nice town. There's beautiful, I guess they call them hills here. I call them mountains. And oh, I think I froze up.
No, you're okay. You're back.
Oh, I'm okay. Okay. You know, around the area, and I can see this community thrive. You know, it's the basics is that we have to start from a different route. Like, coal is dying, but in the heathen community and in the LGBT community and in the pagan community, the majority of us are artists and craftsmen. You know, where our power lies. We work with our hearts. We put ourselves into the things that we create and make. And I feel like we can make a thriving community by using our art and our craftsmanship and sharing our skills with each other. In Kansas City, I started a thing called Heathen Trade Day, which heathens would get together and bring items that they made, food that they made, crops that they grow, crafts items, and you traded, no money exchange. And if you didn't have an item of trade, you had a story to tell, because that is still knowledge that is something worth trading. And if you had a skill, like if someone had a beautiful knife made, but like, hey, you need a little bit of work done, I got that skill. Let's trade. You know, it was about making friendship and going together in a greater community. And I think it could be done here, and it would bring a thriving, healthy community. You know,
I think that's awesome. You know, we've seen that happen in you know, in places in Pennsylvania like New Hope, where the community has revitalized an area that was really hard hit, and kind of became oppressed, if you will. So I just think it's amazing what you're doing, and want to do going forward in Pottsville. I think that it's awesome to have you. Really, from a personal perspective, it's awesome to have you as part of the LGBTQ pagan community, because there are, as I said, you know, within the Wiccan tradition, within the heathen tradition, within the Strega tradition, Streghieri, the amount of I'm trying to be kind, the amount of messed up information, kind of just missing the mark. You and I had a conversation that I loved, and I had to really bite my tongue earlier this week, watching somebody posting something about Loki, and clearly that person, well, I'm sure that they're if they happen to be watching, I'm sure that their intention was pure. I'm sure that someone may have shared that information with them, but I got the very distinct sense that his entire understanding of Loki came from a movie on TV, or at the movie theater. And as I said, my background's theological anthropology, and I can say that in some of the comparative religion classes that I've audited, or that I've got friends who are taking, and then I've helped them with some of their studies and their research, that the information that we get in those academic texts miss the mark entirely. And so I think you're a real asset and value to our community and to the Norse pagan community, because if you go on, and I want to encourage the viewers, I put Jason's Vitki Bull's email address up on the screen. If you are interested in learning more, don't just go to YouTube and pick any channel, because last night for shits and giggles, I went on YouTube to see what I could find, and see what where the disparity was there. And I was expecting to find it was going to be one or two or three things, and we would talk about that on the show. We try to keep these shows to about 20 minutes, so I wanted to keep it to a couple things. What I discovered in the Norse paganism and Ashatru traditions was that the disparity of information is every bit as bad as we find in the Wiccan community and in the witchcraft and Stegaria, because some of these people were just so off in left field. Some of them, it was just all about let me tell you about my vision this week show. It was all ego driven, and I never heard the word I was looking for that was very clear with every Norse pagan that I've met who had a sincere practice, and you used that word today on Facebook, and that was service. That was to point out the history of Norse paganism as being the warriors for us all, that a lot of people don't realize. So if you could speak to that for just a minute, and kind of share the gist of what you posted on Facebook this morning.
So a lot of heathens, they go on this, well, we're warriors. We're supposed to fight and go into battle. Yes, we are warriors. We're not just physical warriors. If you're going to be a warrior, you have to be a warrior in every sense of the way. And what is the cause? A warrior fights for what is good and just. In the old days, the Europeans, the Swedish and Norse and stuff, they were hired by people in other groups as guards and as traders and as many different things. We weren't just warriors in battle. We served others, and it was for the greater good for everybody. And if we are a warrior, we are diplomatic. We have to go in there and be diplomats to end a chaos or a problem. If we're going to be warriors, we have to go in there and be ambassadors. And hey, look, I'm going to step in and I'm going to represent as a good, upstanding person for these people, because these people are my people, and it doesn't matter who they are. You know, in lore it says that Wotan Bay made man and woman. Well, their children are all from the man and woman. We're all brothers and sisters. We are all one family, and we need to treat each other as one family. We're polytheists. So all gods, they're all cool. All races, all cool. We came from two trees. Trees are made of different colors. You know, that's how it is.
That's just so awesome. I want to thank you for having you on. I won't put you on the spot on the show and say that we really do hope that you'll consider the invitation I gave just before we went on to be part of the Brew, which is for those that are watching. That's our talk show, similar to The View, similar to the Chew or the Talk or all those programs, but from a pagan perspective, and particularly from a perspective of pagan LGBT gay and lesbian pagans, and bi and trans and questioning and all those other initials of the alphabet. But I do hope that you'll consider at least coming back, if not being a regular co-host on the show, because I think that there's so much more that you have to offer. There's so much more that you can. I knew from the minute that we first started talking that you were somebody who would be a leader in your part of our tribe. You know, a tapestry is made up of various colors. A tapestry is made up of threads of gold and threads of silver and threads of every color under the rainbow. As Vitki Bull said, that you know, we come from in lore, it says that we came from a tree, and the colors of a tree as those leaves reach their maturity and fall to the ground, when we know that tree is dropping its seeds for the next generation, the trees are ablaze in color. And it's all about coming back to that moment, because, my friends, that's where the point of power is. On the Inner Alchemy program, we like to remind everybody that this isn't about making my view or your view or a guest view the only view. This is about saying that that I honor your view, you honor my view. None of us has the right to dethrone another, but that if we come together and we work together for a common purpose and recognize that that common thread for all of us is learning to control the mind. And then once you control the mind, the only response you can have, you heard from Vitki Bull today, and that is compassion. That is taking responsibility for your brothers and sisters. And so we see that in the Norse pagan tradition. We see that in the Polynesian tradition with Ho'oponopono. We see that in the Wiccan tradition. We see that in esoteric Christianity and Buddhism and esoteric Judaism. Guys, I think it's time for us as a community, at a time when our world is so frigging divided, when the stress levels at seeing terrorists in places and positions of power taking control of the airwaves and the media and instilling hatred and division and racism and gender bias. I think we have a responsibility to do more than just say this is horrible. We have to be out there and be that example, be that light that shines on the road. So we don't claim to have the way. We don't claim to be the way and have all the answers. What we want to do is stand shoulder to shoulder with you and be the one holding up that lantern so that you can see your path, whatever that path might be. And so at the end of these shows, while I want to first thank Vitki Bull, Jason, thank you so much for being here with us. And as I said, I hope we see more of you. And I want to encourage all of you, if you're not familiar, and I've got to tell you that it's this new platform is amazing, but it can be a little bit daunting to try. And I don't talk and chew gum very well at the same time. And so it can be a little bit daunting doing the control panel and making sure we get stuff up like I'm supposed to. We encourage you to visit us online at inneralchemy.online. That's not inneralchemy.com. It's inneralchemy.online. If you'd like to know more about what we do and about the show, stop there and visit us. But as we wrap up today, and we're 2 minutes over, I apologize, but you'll get used to that because that's kind of how it rolls here. I want to encourage you to return to the moment, to be grateful for everything you've got. Because if you can't be grateful for what you have right now, in this moment, because you have everything that you need right now, you're not going to be any happier with more. When you do that, you reclaim your power. And when you reclaim your power, that compassion, that desire to serve is the path that opens up for you. So I wish that for you. I wish you peace. If you're in the area of Snowpocalypse 2019, I wish you well. And I hope for you that everybody on your Facebook wall doesn't have to remind you or tell you that it's snowing, because we all do have windows, hopefully. And we know it's snowing, but stay safe. We want you guys to stay safe out there. And this is a great opportunity. I always say that when it snows, I live on the riverfront along the Susquehanna River. And when I look out and see the trees blanketed in snow, and I see the park in front of our front room blanketed in snow, the river starting to get covered in snow, it just kind of gives me that it's one of the most beautiful things, one of the most magical things to see, because it's all things being clean, all things being made new. Any of the flaws that are in the park or along the riverfront or the sidewalks are covered, and everything looks new. That's what happens when you decide to make one change in your thoughts, to master your thinking and become the master of your universe. Everything begins to change. Everything's made new. So we'll see you guys next week at the same time, and then watch your Facebook page. We should know later on today, if not tomorrow, what the schedule will be for the brew this coming week. And thanks again, Vitki Bull. Everybody, namaste. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.